Hi, I'm Lise Leblanc, therapist, author, and life coach, and today I'm talking about why even the smartest, most successful people can find themselves stuck in a toxic relationship, unable to break free, even when they logically know that it's destroying them. In some of my previous videos, I've covered trauma bonding, what it is, and how to break free. But today, I want to focus specifically on what happens to your brain chemistry when a narcissist gets their hooks into you and how their hot and cold behavior can hijack your nervous system. And at the end of this video, I will also explain why over time you can no longer get pleasure out of anything anymore. And the reason I'm explaining this is not to overwhelm you, but to help you understand why you feel the way you do, and so that you can release the shame that often comes with being stuck in this toxic cycle of abuse. It's important to know that your brain chemistry has literally been hijacked and you've been trained to crave the very thing that is harming you. So at the beginning of the relationship, when the narcissist is love bombing you, your brain is being flooded with feel-good chemicals like dopamine, oxytocin, and serotonin. This makes you feel euphoric, deeply loved and connected, like you found something truly rare and magical. It's intense and it's easy to become addicted to their attention, affection, validation, and that false sense of trust and security that they create. So let's start with dopamine. Dopamine is often referred to as the feel-good transmitter because it drives our sense of motivation, pleasure, and reward. When the narcissist showers you with all that attention, praise, affection, and gifts, your brain releases large amounts of dopamine, which creates intense feelings of euphoria and excitement. So you feel like you're on top of the world, like everything is perfect. This dopamine surge is what makes you feel motivated to keep pleasing the narcissist and doing what they want, because your brain starts to associate their approval and affection with these rewards. But dopamine doesn't just get released when you're actually receiving rewards, it's also heavily tied to the anticipation of rewards. So when the narcissist pulls back on those rewards and starts going from hot to cold, your brain starts to anticipate that next moment of validation or affection. And it creates an addictive cycle where you're constantly seeking their approval and trying to fix whatever they're complaining about in an effort to get that next hit of dopamine. But each time the narcissist withdraws those rewards, it leads to a dopamine crash, and it makes you crave that next rush of dopamine even more. Then there's oxytocin, which is the bonding hormone. Oxytocin is released during moments of emotional connection, affection, and intimacy. It promotes feelings of trust and attachment. In the early stages, the narcissist will be mirroring your desires, your beliefs, your values, and they're creating an illusion of deep emotional understanding and connection. This mirroring triggers a release of oxytocin, making you feel emotionally bonded to them. The more they praise you, the more they reflect your needs and desires, the more they get you involved in their shared fantasy, the stronger the bond gets. And you'll feel like you truly have found your soulmate, someone who is extremely special, made just for you. And this releases even more oxytocin, reinforcing those feelings of trust, security, intimacy, and this cements your attachment to them even more, even though it's all based on manipulation and empty promises. But obviously, your brain doesn't know that. It's simply associating these moments of affection and validation with deep connection and that sense of pleasure. So you get emotionally attached to someone who does not have the capacity for true emotional intimacy. And as soon as a narcissist gets you hooked, the game changes. They begin withdrawing more and more, emotionally leaving you confused, anxious, and destabilized. That huge dopamine wave you are riding crashes, And in its place comes a surge of cortisol, which is the stress hormone. So your body shifts into a fight or flight response, and everything starts to feel like an emergency, like a life and death situation. So you're in this state of emotional chaos, like it's a matter of survival. And this is because your cortisol levels are spiking, your dopamine's crashing, and oxytocin is dropping, making you feel absolutely horrible. But don't worry, because oftentimes the narcissist will be waiting for you to hit rock bottom, and then they will dangle the possibility of giving you those rewards back if you comply, work harder, prove your worth and your loyalty. Then they might offer small breadcrumbs of affection or validation, just enough to pull you back in, reigniting the release of dopamine and oxytocin, giving you some much needed relief from the stress and emotional pain that you're in. This reinforces the cycle of addiction and their control over your emotional state. So your brain starts to crave more than just dopamine. It also craves serotonin, which plays a critical role in regulating mood and contributes to feelings of happiness and well-being. When the narcissist gives you affection and approval, your serotonin levels rise. But when they pull away that affection and you're subjected to neglect, abuse, and manipulation, your serotonin levels drop, making you feel emotionally depleted, insecure, maybe even depressed. Over time, your brain becomes more and more dependent on the narcissist for emotional regulation and stress relief. And it gets harder and harder to feel stable or at peace without their approval, even though they're the ones causing you distress. Lastly, let's talk about endorphins. In the context of a narcissistic relationship, the emotional pain caused by the narcissist's withdrawal, criticism, or cruelty triggers a release of endorphins in your brain. These endorphins are the body's natural painkillers, and they provide some relief from emotional or physical suffering. This temporary relief feels good, though it doesn't last long, and it becomes linked to the narcissist's behavior. So when the narcissist gives you pain, you get a rush of endorphins. When they come back and give you small amounts of affection or validation, it creates a momentary sense of emotional relief, reinforcing the cycle of highs and lows by giving you another boost of endorphins and other feel-good chemicals and hormones. This cycle of emotional pain, followed by brief moments of affection and validation, create a powerful neurochemical bond. You're now wired to crave their validation and approval, and you become addicted to the emotional highs and lows that you associate to them, and only them. So once you've become addicted to this cycle, it's impossible to get those same highs or relief from anyone else. It's like the narcissist holds the key to your experiences of pleasure and pain relief. And even though you may rationally know that you're being manipulated, it doesn't change the fact that the neurochemical bond is so strong and powerful that it's almost impossible to break. Over time, these disruptions in your brain chemistry can significantly alter your reward, attachment, and pain relief systems. For example, your brain may start to suffer from dopamine deficiency, meaning it no longer responds to the same levels of pleasure or reward, which makes it very hard to experience joy from healthy sources. It also messes with your pain processing, leaving you more sensitive to emotional distress and less able to regulate your emotions. So you might find yourself constantly chasing the highs of narcissistic validation or desperately seeking relief from the emotional chaos that the narcissist is creating, while struggling to find any real comfort or satisfaction outside of the toxic cycle that you're trapped in. And in the end, you become so dependent on the narcissist for your sense of emotional stability, your self-worth, and your relief from emotional pain, even though they're the ones causing you pain, destabilizing you emotionally, and destroying your self-worth. If you're a man struggling to break a trauma bond, please check out my new men's group coaching program that you can find linked in the description section of this video. If you found this information helpful, please like, comment, and subscribe. And to learn more about how to break a trauma bond, please click on the link above.